Hopefully that's started. Okay. Hello boys and girls, welcome to Swifto's Storytime Streams, and today we're going to be reading some amazing, I'm sure very family friendly, public domain, which is very important, stories from Brothers Grimm. Got the book here, and last time, continuing on from the last time I read from this book, we read the Frog King, as well as another story I can't remember, something to do with a giant. So that one wasn't as memorable. But today we are going to be reading The Little Peasant, which doesn't sound pleasant. I mean, peasant. Morning peasant. Yeah, you can tell this was written a long time ago. Some of these stories I don't think have particularly aged well. Oh, and I nearly forgot to change. I am going to get like a proper title card some point. That's just the Swifteries logo for the moment. But here we are now. That is the book I am reading from, which says Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. But you know, same thing, innit? Alright, anyway. The Little Peasant. There was once a certain village where no one lived but really rich peasants, and just one poor one, whom they called the Little Peasant. It's not very nice, is it? How can they be rich peasants? I thought peasants were like the poor people. That doesn't make sense. Unless I'm just crap at history and I don't know what a peasant is. Anyway, he had not even so much as a cow. Fair enough. And still less money to buy one. And yet he and his wife did so wish to have one. One day he said to her, "Hark you, hark you." Sorry, I got distracted there. Anyway, "Hark you, I have a good thought. There is our gossip, the carpenter. He shall make us a wooden calf. I shall paint it brown, so that it looks like any other, and in time it will certainly get big and be a cow." I don't think that's how that works, but okay. If it's just a wooden cow. Anyway, the women also liked the idea, and their gossip the carpenter cut and planed the calf, and painted it as it ought to be, and made it with his head hanging down as if it were eating. Next morning, when the cows were being driven out, the little peasant called the cowherd in and said, "Look, I have a little calf here. There, sorry. But it is still so small and still has to be carried." The cowherd said, "All right," and took it in his arms and carried it to the pasture, and set it among the grass. Sorry, I've got a wee bit of a sore throat tonight. The little calf always remained standing like one which was eating, and the cowherd said, "It will soon run alone. Just look how it eats already." At night, when he was going to drive the herd home again, he said to the calf, "If thou canst stand there and eat thy fill, thou canst also go on thy 4 legs. I don't care to drag thee home again in my arms." God, this guy's thick, isn't he? You would think that a fucking cow herder would know the difference between a piece of wood and a cow, but okay. But the little peasant stood at his door and waited for his little calf. And when the cowherd drove the cows through the village, and the calf was missing, he inquired where it was. The cowherd answered, "It is still standing out there eating. It would not stop and come with us." It would not stop and come with us. Oops, I just hit the microphone with the book page, which is very professional. But the little peasant said, "Oh, but I must have my beast back again." Then they went back to the meadow together, but someone had stolen the calf, and it was gone. The cowherd said, "It must have run away." The peasant, however, said, "Don't tell me that," and led the cowherd before the mare, who for his carelessness condemned him to give the peasant a cow for the calf which had run away. I see, it's a scam, was it? Crafty. And now the little peasant and his wife had the cow for which they had so long wished, and they were heartily glad, but they had no food for it, and could give it nothing to eat, and so it had to be killed. And they had delicious beef sandwiches. They salted the flesh, and the peasant went into the town and wanted to sell the skin there, so that he might buy a new calf with the proceeds. On the way he passed a mill, and there sat a raven with broken wings. And out of pity he took him and wrapped him up in the skin. As, however, the weather grew so bad, and there was a storm of rain and wind, he could go no further, and turned back to the mill and begged for shelter. The miller's wife was alone in the house, and said to the peasant, "Lay thyself on the straw there," and gave him a slice of bread with cheese on it. The peasant ate it, and lay down with his skin beside him. And the woman thought, "He is tired and has gone to sleep." In the meantime came the parson. The miller's wife received him well and said, "My husband's out, so we'll have a feast." Oh, I see, when the cat's away, eh? Dirty miller's wife. The peasant listened, and when he heard about the feasting, he was vexed that he had been forced to make shift with a slice of bread and cheese on it. Do apologise, I had to stop to cough there. He was vexed that he had been forced to make shift with a slice of bread with cheese on it. Then the woman served up 4 different things: roast meat, salad, cakes, and wine. Just as they were about to sit down and eat, there was a knocking outside. The woman said, "Oh heavens, it's my husband." She quickly hid the roast meat inside the tiled stove, the wine under the pillow, and the salad on the bed. Okay. The cakes under the bed, and the parson in the cupboard in the entrance. She's full of dirty secrets, isn't she? Then she opened the door for her husband and said, "Thank heavens thou art back. There is such a storm. It looks as if the world were coming to an end." The miller saw the peasant lying on the straw and asked, "What is that fellow doing there?" "Ah," said the wife, "that poor knave came in the storm and rain and begged for shelter. So I gave him a bit of bread and cheese and showed him where the straw was. And what's that delicious smell of a roast I can smell?" The man said, "I have no objections, but be quick and get something to eat." The woman said, "But I have nothing but bread and cheese." Because he couldn't have smelled like the roast. Okay. "I am content with anything," replied the husband. "So far as I am concerned, bread and cheese will do." And he looked at the peasant and said, "Come and eat some more with me." The peasant did not require to be invited twice, but got up and ate. After this, the miller saw that the skin in which the raven was lying, the raven was still there, fucking hell, lying on the ground, and asked, "What hast thou there?" The peasant answered, "I have a soothsayer inside." "Can he foretell anything to me?" said the miller. "Why not?" answered the peasant. "But he only says 4 things, and the 5th he keeps to himself." The miller was curious and said, "Let him foretell." What's going on here? Oh, sorry. I was just... looks like it stopped recording. Getting distracted. I think we're still live. Anyway. Where was I? Only says 4 things, and the 5th he keeps to himself. The miller was curious and said, "Let him foretell something for once." I read that wrong, but never mind. Then the peasant pinched the raven's head so that he croaked and made a noise like "Kurr, kurr." The miller said, "What did he say?" The peasant answered, "In the first place, he says that there will be some wine hidden under the pillow." Oh, I see what he's doing here. "Bless me," cried the miller, and went there and found the wine. "Now go on," he said. The peasant made the raven croak again and said, "In the second place, he says that there is some roast meat in the tiled stove." "Upon my word," cried the miller, and went thither and found the roast meat. The peasant made the raven prophesy still more, and said, "Thirdly, he says that there is some salad on the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and went there and found the salad. At last the peasant pinched the raven once more, till he croaked and said, "Fourthly, he says that there is some cakes under the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller. He already said that, but okay. And looked there and found the cakes. It's really taking the biscuit, isn't he? Or cakes. And now the two sat down to the table together, but the miller's wife was frightened to death, and went to the bed and took all the keys with her. The miller would have liked much to know the 5th, but the little peasant said, First we will quickly eat the 4 things, for the 5th is something bad." So they ate, and after that they bargained how much the miller was to give for the 5th prophecy, until they agreed on the 300. That word's cut in 2. I hate it when they do that. You know, when you're reading a book and then it cuts the word in 2. So what is that then? Thalers. Is that some sort of currency? I think, maybe. It must be, surely. 300 thalers, whatever that is. Then the peasant once more pinched the raven's head tilted, till he croaked loudly. The miller asked, "What did he say?" The peasant replied, "He says that the devil is hiding outside there, in the cupboard, in the entrance." The miller said, "The devil must go out," and opened the house door. Then the woman was forced to give up the keys, and the peasant, turn the page, unlocked the cupboard. This has gone way off on a tangent from a wooden cow, isn't it? This story. The parson ran out as fast as he could, and the miller said, "It was true. I saw the black rascal." That means bad, by the way. No, the other kind of black. Don't get my back. With my own eyes. The peasant, however, made off next morning by the daybreak with the 300 thalers. There it is. It's not split in 2 this time. It's a pet peeve of mine with books when they split words in 2 like that. Anyway, at the home, the small peasant... I thought it was the little peasant. Okay, the small peasant gradually lunched out. He built a beautiful house. Lunched out. Is that launched out? Have I read that wrong? I read it wrong, yeah. That's what I've done. And the peasant said, "The small peasant has certainly been to the place where golden snow falls, and people carry the gold home in shovels. I know another kind of golden snow. Then the small peasant... Again, I thought it was the little peasant. Okay, whatever. Then the small peasant was brought before the mayor and bidden to say from whence his wealth came from. Just said came there, but I added from by accident. Never mind. He answered, I sold my cow's skin in the town for 300 thalers. When the peasants heard that, they too wished to enjoy this great profit, and ran home, killed all their cows, and stripped off their skins in order to sell them in the town to the greatest advantage. The mayor, however, said, But my servant must go first. Okay. When she came to the merchant in the town, he did not give her more than 2 thalers for a skin. And when the others came, he did not give them so much, and said, What can I do with all these skins? Then the peasants were vexed that the small peasant should have thus overreached them. Wanting to take vengeance on him, they accused him of his treachery before the mayor. The innocent little peasant, come back to little, was a barrel pierced full of holes. Oh no, sorry, I've skipped a line. The innocent little peasant was unanimously sentenced to death. Fucking hell. And was to be rolled into the water in a barrel pierced full of holes. He was led forth, and a priest was brought who was to say a mass for his soul. The others were all obliged to retire to the distance, and when the peasant looked at the priest, he recognized the man who had been with the miller's wife. He said to him, I set you free from the cupboard, set me free from the barrel. At this same moment came up with a flock of sheep the very shepherd who, as the peasant knew, had long wished to be mayor. So he cried with all his might, No, I will not do it. If the whole world insists on it, I will not do it. The shepherd, hearing that, came up to him and asked, What art thou about? What is it that thou wilt not do? The peasant said, They want me to make me mayor, if I will but put myself in a barrel. But I will not do it. The shepherd said, If nothing more than that is needful in order to be mayor, I would get into the barrel at once. Fucking hell, this little peasant's devilish, delightfully devilish, isn't he? The peasant said, If thou wilt get in, thou wilt be mayor. The shepherd was willing and got in, and apparently no one tried to stop him. Okay. Oh, I suppose they did say they retired to a distance, but still, you would have thought someone would have stopped it, but okay. And the peasant shut the top down on him. Then he took the shepherd's flock for himself and drove it away. Fucking hell. We've actually got a picture here, but unfortunately I can't show you because I don't have my camera set up at the moment. But basically it's a picture of people jumping into the water. I'm guessing that's for something that happens later on in the story. The parson went to the crowd and declared that the mass had been said. Then they came and rolled the barrel towards the water. When the barrel began to roll, the shepherd cried, I am quite willing to be mayor. They believed no otherwise that was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, This is what we intend, but first thou shalt look about the little down below there. I read that badly, didn't I? And they rolled the barrel down into the water. After that, the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, the small peasant also came in quietly, driving a flock of sheep, and, turn the page, looking quite content. Then the peasants were astonished, and said, Peasant, from whence thou came? Hast thou come out of the water? Yes, truly, replied the peasant. I sank deep, deep down, until at last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom out of the barrel, and crept out, and there were plenty meadows on which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought this flock away with me. Said the peasants, Are there any more? Oh yes, he said, more than I could do anything with. Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would go and fetch some sheep for themselves, a flock apiece. But the mayor said, I come first. So they went to the water together, and just then there were some of the small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which are called little lambs. Really? All right. And they were reflected in the water. Oh God, what? How stupid are these people? Fucking peasants, huh? And they reflected in the water, whereupon the peasants cried, We already see the sheep down below, because apparently they haven't got 2 brain cells to share between them. The mayor pressed forward and said, I will go down first, and look about me, and if things promise well, I'll call you. So he jumped in. Splash went the water. He made a sound as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. Then the entire village was dead, and the small peasant, as so heir, became a very rich man. Fucking hell. These people are so retarded. So that was the story of the little peasant and the village of morons. How long we've been recording now? Can't see. Recording. Oh yes, sorry. Right. So the next story we shall read, it's a very short story. It is called The Golden Key. In the winter time, when deep snow lay on the ground, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. When he had gathered it together and packed it, he wished, as he was so frozen with cold, not to go home at once, but to light a fire and warm himself a little. So he scraped away the snow, and as he thus cleared the ground, he found a tiny gold key. Hereupon he thought that where the key was, the lock must also be, and dug in the ground and found an iron chest. If the key does but fit, he thought, no doubt there are precious things in that little box. He searched, but no keyhole was there. At last he discovered one, but so small that it was hardly visible. He tried it, and the key fit exactly. Then he turned it once round, and now we must wait until he has quite unlocked it and opened the lid, and then we shall learn what wonderful things were lying in that box. Is that it? Well, that was the golden key, apparently. Basically, someone finds a key and opens a lock, and that's it. Amazing story there. Alright, well, let's read the next story then. Sharing Joy and Sorrow. There was once a tailor who was a quarrelsome fellow, and his wife, who was good, industrious, and pious, never could please him. Whatever she did, he was not satisfied. That's funny, it's usually the other way around, isn't it? But grumbled and scolded and knocked her about and beat her. Fucking hell. Okay. As the authorities at last heard of it, they had him summoned and put him in prison in order to make him better. Yeah, because everyone who goes to prison always comes out feeling better. of course. He was kept for a while on bread and water, and then set free again. He was forced, however, to promise not to beat his wife anymore. I think that should be bloody obvious, but okay. But to live with her in peace and share joy and sorrow with her as married people ought to do. Yeah, I think really what should happen here is the wife should divorce the man. But this was written a long time ago. As I say, some of these stories have not aged well. Anyway, all went on well for a time, but then he fell into his old ways and was surely quarrelsome. And was surly and quarrelsome. And because he dared not beat her, he would seize her by the hair and tear it out. Fucking hell, what a psycho. The woman escaped from him and sprang out into the yard, but he ran after her with his yard measure and scissors. Fucking hell. And chased her about and threw the yard measure and scissors at her, and whatever else came his way. When he hit her, he laughed, and when he missed her, he stormed and swore. This went on so long that the neighbours came to the wife's assistance. The tailor was again summoned before the magistrates and reminded of his promise. "Dear gentlemen," he said, "I have kept my word. I have not beaten her, but I have shared joy and sorrow with her." "How can that be," said the judge, "when she continually brings such heavy complaints against you? I have not beat her, but just because she looks so strange, I want to comb her hair with my hand. She, however, got away from me and left me quite spiteful. Then I hurried after her, and in order to bring her back to her duty, I threw at her as well meant, adorned, whatever came readily to hand. I have," turn the page, "shared joy and sorrow with her also. From whenever I hit her, I was full of joy, and she was sorrow. And if I miss her, then she was joy, and I was sorry." The judges were not satisfied with this answer, but gave him the reward he deserved. That's a fucking incredible bit of defence on his part. Well, in a way, I guess he did share joy and sorrow. Okay, the next story is another very short one. It's called The Nail. A merchant had done good business at the fair. He had sold his wares and lined his money bags with gold and silver. Then he wanted to travel homewards, and to be in his own house before nightfall. So he packed his trunk, and with the money on his horse, and rode away. I'm not sure about that sentence structure, but okay. At noon he rested in a town, and when he wanted to go further, the stable boy brought out his horse and said, "A nail is waiting, sir, and that shoe of his left hind foot. Fucking hell, I got there eventually." "Let it be wanting," answered the merchant. "The shoe will certainly stay on for the 6 miles I have to go." What a bastard. "I am in a hurry." Yeah, well, the horse deserves a bit of respect as well. He's the one who has to do all the fucking walking. Anyway. In the afternoon, when he once more aligned and had his horse fed, the stable boy went into the room to him and said, "Sir, a shoe is missing from your horse's left hind foot. Shall I take him to the blacksmith?" "Let it still be wanting," answered the man. "The horse can very well hold for the couple of miles which remain. I am in haste." He rode forth, but before long the horse began to limp. It had not limped long before it began to stumble, and it had not stumbled long before it fell down and broke its leg. The merchant was forced to leave his horse where it was and unbuckle the trunk, take it on his back and go home on foot. And there he did not arrive until quite late at night. And that unlucky nail, said he to himself, has caused all this disaster. Hastens slowly. No, I think you're the one who's at fault here, Mr. Merchant person. So that has been several stories from Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. No one showed up, but that's fine. If anyone ever does hear this, which is very unlikely, I hope you have enjoyed. And now I'm going to start the second part of this live stream of mine. But I think it's easier for me... Whoops, made the microphone spike. It's easier for me just to stop the video or stop the recording and get things set up, not whilst I'm recording. So I'm just going to stop this now, and then I'm going to play a bit of Majora's Mask. So I don't think anyone was listening, so I don't know, I'm just talking to myself here, but anyway, adios.